Jungian synchronicity makes us question whether everything can be explained by just cause and effect. The findings of physics have shown that natural laws are not always absolute and can change depending on the situation. These laws only hold true when dealing with large-scale things that are based on averages. When we talk about the very small world, it's hard to make predictions because things don't behave like we expect them to based on the laws of nature we know. This is because we need space and time to understand how things work, and we can only observe things that are moving. If we don't understand how things are connected and what causes them, we can't be sure about anything in the world. This idea is the foundation of our certainty about the world around us. However, if we discover that our understanding of cause and effect is only based on probability, meaning that it's only true some of the time, then the principle of cause and effect would only be somewhat helpful in explaining how things work. Carl Jung, a famous psychologist, was very curious about the concept of synchronicity when he was in his mid-20s. Synchronicity refers to the idea that certain events or occurrences can be connected in a meaningful way, even though they may seem like mere coincidences. Jung found that on several occasions, events that he thought were just coincidences were actually connected in a way that had a special meaning. He was amazed by the fact that the likelihood of these events occurring at the same time was so low that it would be expressed in a very large number, like 1 in a billion. This puzzled Jung and made him very interested in exploring the idea of synchronicity further. Once Jung was helping a young woman who was going through a difficult time. One day, during their session, the woman shared with him a dream she had. In her dream, she was given a valuable golden scarab. While she was describing the dream to Jung, he heard a soft tapping sound coming from the window. When he looked over, he saw a large flying insect trying to enter the room through the window. Jung opened the window and caught a flying insect, which was similar to a golden scarab beetle found in the area. He then gave the beetle to the patient, saying it was her scarab. The patient had been difficult to communicate with because she strongly believed in Cartesian rationalism and saw reality in a very logical and structured way. He said something very strange happened that caused his patient to become more open to treatment. It was like a wall of rational thinking was broken down, and they were able to make progress. He had never experienced anything like it before or since, and it made the patient's dream really unique. There's another example of something like this happening that Kant wrote about in a letter. Swedenborg had a vision of a fire in Stockholm while he was in a city 300 miles away. He kept updating people on the fire's progress, and 2 days later, a messenger arrived with news of the actual fire. Jung talks about a story by Wilhelm von Schultz, a German author, about lost or stolen objects that end up back with their owners in strange ways. Jung thinks that the author believes these events are arranged like a dream by a larger consciousness that we can't understand. Jung calls this synchronicity, which means when our thoughts and feelings match up with things happening around us in a way that seems meaningful. Jung, who is known for his ideas about the collective unconscious and archetypes, was heavily influenced by Schopenhauer's book on the apparent design and fate, which talks about how things that are not connected can happen at the same time by chance. Schopenhauer believed in something called transcendent fatalism, which is a metaphysical idea that suggests there is hidden guidance in the universe. Jung, on the other hand, used astrology and the collective unconscious to explain these phenomena. However, both of them were troubled by the mysterious and unexplainable aspects of fate. Sometimes when people look back on their lives, it can seem like everything was already planned out for them and they were just going through the motions, like actors in a play. It's like how a baby turtle instinctively knows to go straight to the water even though it can't see it. This instinct is like an inner compass that guides people towards the path that is right for them, but they may not realize it until they've already gone down that path. Schopenhauer said that there are 2 ways in which events in a person's life are connected. The first way is through the natural order of cause and effect, which happens in the world around us. The second way is through the individual person's experience and perspective of these events, which is personal and unique. He compares this subjective connection to a dream, which is unique to each person, but still has a certain order and logic to it. Just like in a play, where the scenes are planned out by the writer, the succession and content of a person's experiences are also determined, but in a personal way. However, there is no way to prove this through philosophy or experience, because these 2 ways of connecting are intertwined and cannot be separated. The subjective and objective aspects of events are the same things, and are always happening together. Sometimes when someone writes about events, we might see a strange contrast between how things physically happen and what they mean for morality or the bigger picture of life. We can imagine this contrast, but we can't prove it. There's a demand or a need for us to believe that everything happens for a reason and that there's a unity between what happens and what should happen. This need is irresistible, but it's impossible to understand it clearly. The ancients called this need fate or the guiding genius of each person, and Christians call it providence. To make things easier to understand, Schopenhauer talked about 3 different ideas from Kant's philosophy. The first idea is about how we have freedom to choose, but everything we do is necessary. The second idea is about how nature can be explained both by cause and effect and by its purpose. The third idea is about how events in our lives can seem random, but they might be necessary for our own good or for some bigger plan. This is like the balance between what happens naturally and what's meant to happen by some higher power. Jung created 3 categories to distinguish different types of events that happen at the same time, called synchronicity. The first type is when something happening inside a person's mind matches up with something happening outside in the world. For example, if someone is thinking about a beetle and then sees a beetle outside, that's a coincidence. The second type is when something happening in a person's mind matches up with something happening outside, but far away, and the person only finds out about it later. For instance, if someone has a dream about a fire in Stockholm, and then the next day hears about a real fire that happened there, that's synchronistic. The third type is when something happening in a person's mind matches up with something that will happen in the future, but the person only finds out about it after it happens. For example, if someone has a feeling that they will meet a long-lost friend, and then unexpectedly runs into that friend the next day, that's also synchronistic. Jung thinks that the second and third types are different from the first type because the coinciding events are not yet present in the person's perception. However, both Jung and Schopenhauer's ideas depend on the observer's reference point and how time plays out in the order of past, present, and future events. Jung believed that synchronicity is not any more mysterious than the strange and unpredictable things that happen in physics. Schopenhauer also explained that time, space, and causality only belong to the way we understand things, not to the things themselves. He said that the will of things is free from everything that happens after it, like our experiences and ideas. Schopenhauer thought that the most important goal of Jung's work was to find a principle that connects things without cause and effect. In his final writing, Jung talked about an invisible force that guides us in a hidden way until we die. At that moment, all the mysterious forces that determine our fate come together, and the result of their conflict decides what will happen to us after we die. This process is called palingenesis, and it includes both good and bad things. Our destiny is determined, and there's no way to change it. That's why the moment of death is very important, serious, and fearful, like a day of judgment.